Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Hope you're well today and ready for another session from the House of PMO. And this one is all about the PMO analyst role. Obviously, here at the House of PMO, we encompass many roles around PMO, but we thought it'd be really nice to do a session where we just focus specifically on the role that PMO people that are choosing to do, it's not just that title PMO analyst. We recognise that. You could be called a project support officer, you could be called a project coordinator, a program coordinator, whatever you want to, whatever your title is. But it is about that kind of role that is supporting projects and programs, possibly working in portfolio as well, but also doing those kind of centre of excellence roles. So I'm on my own today. So if you're wanting to chat, I've got that open. I can see it and I can pick up any questions as we go through today's session. And you'll see from when you were looking at the event about whether to choose whether it's the right kind of thing for you to come and listen to. Today's agenda around that PMO analyst role is we're going to be looking at the roles and responsibilities. We're going to look at the tasks at hand. So again, just getting a feel for the kind of role that the analyst provides, but also not just thinking about the day and the week and the month and what it is that you're doing for a job, but I think it's also just the nature of what it is and how many people that you're working with, and sometimes how many projects that you're working on, makes it a really interesting job in terms of trying to find that balance. So we'll talk about the tasks at hand, and then we'll talk about the career path. So hopefully that sounds good to you and what you've signed up to listen to today. So as I said, any questions as we go through it, please do drop them into chat and we'll make sure that those get answered as well. So let's kick off. We've got an hour. I've got quite a lot of stuff to get through. So the role of the PMO analyst, we are talking a lot in today's session about the PMO competency framework, because that is where the role profile for a PMO analyst has been kind of set. It's been one of those things that, I've been working in and around PMOs for 20 years, and there's so many different variations of, you'll know just by looking at job specs and probably even your own organisation in terms of what they've got in terms of job profiles and things. We thought it was about time that actually there was something that kind of encompasses what a PMO analyst does, and so everybody can kind of get behind that or use it as a kind of jumping off point, is to say, yeah, within our organisation, we look at the base role profile for a PMO analyst, and then we're going to add some other bits into it based on the organisation that we're working within. So the competency framework, which has been created by people that are working in PMOs themselves in different industries, different parts of the world as well, so it's not just a UK focus, came together to create that competency framework over a period of 3 years. So it's there where because it's been created by people that are actually doing the job, we've been able to, when we were putting that together, you can probably imagine some of the meetings that we had and trying to pull this kind of stuff together. A lot of debate, a lot of argument, but it just means that it comes out as being something that it makes sense. If you're working in this space, when you look at the role profile for a PMO analyst, it makes sense to you, but it obviously has been done by people that work in this space. So the role of that PMO analyst then is supporting projects, programs or portfolios and their teams in delivery, including coordination, planning, control, reporting, analysis and insights. Top line, that's what we've got to, in doing a high level, what is the role of a PMO analyst? I think that pretty much does the thing. And also we know that obviously working within a PMO, you have a focus and a job to do in terms of PMO activity as well. So you're working with your PMO manager in all those kind of different PMO initiatives that might happen. So we'll talk a little bit more about those as we go through. So that is the high level role. So hopefully we're all on the same page. The interesting thing in terms of, for me today, we're really interested to know what you are. Are you a PMO analyst today? And why have you come along and listening to this? Are you somebody that's thinking that this could be a career for you and that you'd like to get into it? Or maybe you've started just working around PMO stuff and this is a role that you kind of want to do going forward, or you want to step up from being maybe a PMO administrator or something like that, get into the chat and say hello and just tell me a little bit more about it, because I'd just love to know who I'm talking to right now. But hopefully some of this will be landing really nicely with you. So with any role profile, you kind of have those top like kind of roles and responsibilities. And again, we recognize that PMOs are different in each organization. However, there is a base role that the PMO analyst is doing regardless of what kind of PMO that you're working within. Just means that some of the things you may look at these roles and these roles and responsibilities that are on screen right now and think, well, actually, I don't do that. And that's fine, but that's because the context that you're working in and your particular PMO doesn't have that focus. But by and large, these are the kind of collective 5 things that make up that kind of PMO analyst role. So for example, you're going through all those kind of things where you're providing what we call P3M services. So you might see that term P3M a few times during the competency framework, and all P3M is a shortened way of saying portfolio, program, and project. So P3M services in this way is what is the PMO offering to the organization in terms of its services from the PMO. So there's a umpteen many different services. And for any of you that have seen the PMO service catalogue, which is another book, which is also from a house of PMO, a very big book, you'll see that there are a lot of different kinds of services that the PMO analysts can offer. So it depends on what your PMO is there to do. So there's that whole objective of what is the PMO actually there to do, defines what kind of services it's going to offer. And because of the services that you offer, kind of defines what your role is as a PMO analyst. So the competency framework is just about showing you, these are the kind of top things that PMO analysts are doing, and you may or may not be doing some of them. But with a competency framework, it means that you can do an assessment against those bits that you are doing. And I am going to tell you a little bit more and go into a bit more detail about competence and knowledge and skills and things, because to get into the detail of what makes a PMO analyst, we've got to go there really in terms of the different facets that make up you as a PMO professional. So when we talk about the P3M services, these are just examples. So you would be adding in different kinds of examples and based on your particular situation. But you'll see things in there that probably don't feel different or strange, or actually I've not seen any of that kind of stuff before. It's really straightforward stuff in terms of what we're doing in terms of supporting projects, programs, and portfolios. We've also recognised as a massive part of the job is all around that kind of reporting. But reporting is all about the creation of information and, visualizations and things that are helping people to make decisions. So it's that kind of decision-making support part of the job that we do. And again, we encompass that under the reporting, but you've probably been seeing some of the stuff from House of PMO, how that part of the role is going to have some interesting times over the next few years as we look at some of the technology changes and the kind of rise of the kind of data and data analytics. But again, a big chunk of what we're doing is in that space. One of the other things that many PMO people are doing, and certainly at the analyst level, is about support to our organizations in how to do things. So the PMO tends to be the place where things like the method sits and the templates and the tools and the how-tos and the processes and what people need to be doing when, all of that kind of what we would class very much as like kind of center of excellence type work. It's all of that kind of thing that sits in there that, again, PMO analysts are generally tends to be people that are experienced in projects, programs, and portfolios in terms of they know the theory, they know the practicalities of how it plays out within the organization. No, you're not delivering projects or programs, you're also supporting, and that support includes increasing people's capability, which will include kind of education, some training, some workshops, all of that kind of good stuff. We've also got some kind of senior management type supporting stuff that we're doing in terms of, any of the things that we're producing in terms of reports and insights and things as talk comes back down to that decision-making support. There's a lot of things that we are doing. It's interestingly what we've found, I suppose, over the last I suppose 9 years as portfolio management has started to become more of a way for organizations to manage their entire portfolio of change. We've seen a shift in the way that some PMOs, and who are they working for? So we talk about PMOs that are supporting programs and projects. So quite clearly, the person that you're reporting to is probably going to be the program manager or the project managers, maybe with a bit of portfolio management too. But when we look at PMOs that are more kind of like EPMOs, so that phrase again, enterprise portfolios, enterprise PMOs, who you're reporting to changes. And actually, you're working more for senior level management than you are, down in the delivery of supporting projects and programs. And that shift has meant that actually you're providing different services for both at project level, but also going up to your kind of senior sponsors, your senior execs as well. So the nature of the work and sometimes who's paying the bill for the PMO dictates the way that you're delivering, part of your role or what kind of services that you're providing. So it's been interesting to see that change and that shift. Certainly when you're probably familiar with people saying, oh, you're just a PMO police, you're an overhead and all those kind of things. And sometimes you'll get disparaging remarks from project managers or something like that. I think actually sometimes the recognition that we don't actually work for you, Mr. Project Manager, we're actually working for somebody else. It's been an interesting change over the last decade. And then finally, we got this thing where we call it the role of a service manager. Now, some of the words that we use in here might be not totally familiar for you, but that again has been a shift over the last, I would say 4 or 5 years about, this whole thing about, well, what is the point of a PMO and what value does it offer and what is it doing and all of those kind of things. And the PMO space has taken a lot from ITIL, the service management people, in that they offer services to their customers. And that model works really well for PMOs because it is a case of asking the organization, what do we want from what do you want from the PMO? And we will provide that, but we'll provide them as service offerings. Now, if you want other things for us to do, sometimes we've got to look at, well, these are the services we're currently providing. If you want us to be doing more stuff, that might mean that some of these services either have to be stopped, changed, need more resources, or whatever it might be. It's allowed the PMO to be able to have better conversations, better business level type conversations about what it is that we're doing and how are we doing those things. So if an organization is wanting particular insights, into certain areas across a portfolio, and today we don't do that. The PMO has to think about, well, how do we create that as a service? Planning and thinking needs to go into this before we start doing what's asked of us. And it's a lot more organized. It's rather than the PMO just responding to every request and saying, yeah, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. It's actually taking a step back and saying, have we got the capacity to do this? Do we have the knowledge, skills, and able to be able to offer this? So it's that title of talking about PMO as a service, that we offer in services. And therefore, analysts within the PMO are often responsible for different service areas. So there is the kind of role profile at top level, roles and responsibilities for a PMO analyst. So you can see, I think most people would probably put PMO analysts in those first 2 boxes, in that you're just providing support and that you're doing reporting. And actually, there's a wider piece in terms of what the PMO analyst is doing. So let's go into delve deeper, which is that these are actually your components that make up you as an individual around PMO analysis. So again, the first 4 of those, competencies, knowledge, skills, and behaviours, come from the PMO competency framework. So it's there in book form, and you can look at and pore over it and really get into the different competency areas. We can't do that today because we're doing a whole lot around analysts. And there's another bit in there that I've added that actually, for me, is, when I look at and meet other PMO analysts, understanding, when I listen to them talking and when I listen to them what they're doing about their job, there's certain characteristics. And again, we've been around communities of PMO for like 20 years. You get a feel for, what are some of the really good characteristics that you see coming out of analysts. So let's have a look at some of these. So talked about competencies being coming out of the competency framework. So there it is. There's actually a new version that's going to be available should be next week. Actually available already on TSO's website. So if you do a search for TSO, you can go and buy the new edition. If you've got the old version, don't worry, the content is the same. The only thing, it's a new edition. So there's been a new publisher, which meant that there's just been a slight change in terms of the layout, but the content is the same. So don't worry if you're thinking I'm going to have to buy another version. You don't. So let's have a look at it in terms of its high level stuff. So these are the competency areas of the entire competency framework. So some of these are applicable to PMO analysts, some not so much, but there's a lot of them. So let's have a look at and go through what some of the main competencies are for PMO analysts. And we can't get away from P3M. Again, there's acronyms: portfolio, program, project, administration. And these are the things where we always do this kind of stuff, where we're providing that day-to-day support and assistance to the delivery part of our organisation. And yes, and that can be some secretarial type stuff. And before anybody jumps in and that the PMO shouldn't be doing this kind of thing, actually, if our organisation needs some secretariat type support, that's what the PMO has to offer. But it might not necessarily be coming from a PMO analyst. You may be bringing in a different role. It could be a PMO administrator to do that kind of work. But let's face it, we all as individuals, as well as doing support for our administrative type support for our projects and programs, we've probably got our own as well. So it is a core component of everybody's job, I would have thought. So the second one, which is delivery support, and I've just realised that all my T's have just fallen onto a new line, but those are the entirety of the what we would call the delivery support type competencies. These are the natural things you would see when you're supporting projects and programs. Yeah, there shouldn't be anything in there that looks strange, but there could be some things in there that you don't do. So, for example, you might find that, excuse me, a lot of PMO analysts don't necessarily get into financial management type stuff. And that is just because of the nature of their organisation, how their PMO is set up and what the PMO is there to do. Sometimes it's, finance management doesn't come into it. There may be some elements of it where you're doing some tracking, but actually your finance department does a lot of that. So there are things in this which you say, well, I don't do that, which means that my competency assessment is going to look not great because I haven't got everything. That's not how these things work. This is about the competencies that you have today, but also this is giving you awareness of, these are the entirety of competencies. So you may be really happy where you're working today, but in 5 years' time, you could be moving on. So this is an awareness of that there are an entirety of different things that PMO analysts is getting involved in. And that's what that's showing you, and lots of lines of T's. So let's have a look at what delivery support, again, across the whole lot, is that you're supporting, you're coaching, you're educating these delivery teams in certain areas around project delivery. And that can be that the delivery frameworks, the methods, the processes, the procedures, the tools, the templates, the full lot across all of those different competencies. So again, there's a lot already there, but we're not done yet because there's another part to it, which is the enabling side of competencies. And these are the four that are most applicable to the PMO analyst, because these are the things that you are most likely to be getting involved in. So what does it mean when we say enabling competencies? Well, we've just looked at the ones that are all about supporting projects and programs and portfolios. Those are like the kind of, your boots on the ground, you're doing that work in terms of that level. These, when it comes to enabling, if you think about what the PMO is there to do, we are also there to create the environment, set the ecosystem, as you will, in which all projects and programs and portfolios are running. Yeah. So delivery methods, for example, don't just sit with one particular program or project. Delivery methods are the things that everybody's using. So everybody is using the same kind of assurance. Everybody's using or working within the same governance frameworks. We're only using a certain set of tools across the entire organization. So these are the things where, this is the kind of PMO center of excellence type stuff that we have to have in place in order for all projects and programs to be able to run. So that's what we tossed and turned. What we're going to call this thing that, it is about enabling the environment in which everybody's going to be working. So there you go. It's create, support, and sustain the delivery ecosystem in which all projects and programs and portfolios operate. So we've got the stuff that we're doing directly at projects and programs, but we've also got some work from the PMO, which is about that broader piece of, have we got things in place that everybody's going to be using? So there's those aspects. So those are your competencies. And of course, within each competency is a whole list of different types of things that you're doing in each one of those areas. So again, it's worth, if you've not got that competency framework, if nothing else, and you're really into the PMO analyst role, and this is where you really need to be, make sure you grab that book and have a look. So again, knowledge. There's lots and lots of knowledge in that competency framework. These are the ones that are applicable directly for PMO analysts. So yes, there's a lot of words there. Again, they come out of the book. That this is all about the stuff that you need to know, the knowledge that you need to have in order to be able to do your work and do it well and competently as a PMO analyst. So again, you'll see things in there that, yes, you need to be able to use some of the tools of the organization, whatever they might be. That's a given. You've got to try and understand, well, what delivery methods are we using? Are we using our own? But what are they based on? And also, not necessarily just looking at what we've got within our organization, because remember, part of the PMO role is to make sure that what we've got is still fit for purpose. Our organizations are changing all the time. The way that we deliver will always be changing. And as a PMO function, we also need to make sure that we are fit for purpose with those changes. So you may not be using some of these kind of delivery methods that are out there. But I think what we found about maybe 6-7 years ago, when Agile started to be a thing, everybody started to scrabble to understand it. Our organizations weren't using it, but we knew that they probably wanted to start doing some stuff with it. So again, it's about being able to understand wider about what's out there in terms of good practice around projects, programs, and portfolios. Other stuff in there, yes, it is about being able to understand who in the organization does what, and where do you sit in that whole kind of hierarchical structure? Who comes to you for what, and who do you go for what? All of that kind of thing. And also in there, you've got those kind of P3M, PMO theories and practice. Again, part of the reason why House of PMO exists is to help you, in order to be able to understand some of the new things that are going on in PMO, as well as touching off and making sure we're covering off those basics. So knowledge forms something different to competence. These are the things that you kind of base knowledge of, things that you need to know in order to be able to do that kind of role well and be well-rounded as a PMO analyst. So knowledge, big piece, but again, these are the things that some of this stuff you're doing on a day-by-day basis, these are the things that you pick up when you're in the organization. Some of it means that you probably have to be looking outside, but essentially that knowledge is a big part of what it is that you're doing. So let's have a look at skill then. So remember, I'm showing you a proportion of what the competency framework's got, because there are more knowledge pieces and there's more skills. It depends on what role you're doing. So again, you can probably see the difference between an administrator and a manager. There's going to be different skills that they need. This is all about the analyst, and these are the top ones that you need to be aware of in terms of your kind of skills. So this is about the learned ability to do something. So again, you think in terms of the analyst role, the ability to influence others. Again, do you think about how well you are in terms of influencing skills? Some of the kind of softer stuff, and then we've got the harder stuff where obviously it's in the title, PMO Analyst, so there's obviously a lot of analysis that goes into the role. So there's a difference between the kind of techie type stuff, and then there's that kind of softer people-focused relationship type things. And then there's these kind of skills where it is about, more about, I suppose, the way that we use our brains, so are there ways that, different ways for us to be able to solve problems based on what it is that we're working with? Do we bring some creativity into what we're doing? Are we able to do things like facilitate and take a whole room with us, all of those kind of things. And if you think about the areas where the PMO analyst is working, the knowledge that a PMO analyst has, it's the skill that, our knowledge is only as good as our ability to be able to use that knowledge, and skill is the way to do it. However, it all comes down to our behaviours as well. And again, these are an interesting one. Again, it's a long list. It's a subsection of what's in the competency framework. Now, I've always been one of these people, and I find it definition really difficult about the behaviours. I mean, what are behaviours? Until I saw somebody talking once, and they said, it's what you can see people doing. So you, as an observer of that person over there, has to be able to see behaviour. It's not something like your values. Yeah. So it is something that you can actually physically see how somebody is going about doing something. I think one of the things, like, you can be the most competent PMO analyst with some brilliant knowledge, and you've built up some excellent, like, technical skill and capability, that kind of thing. But if your attitude stinks, if you're not one of those people that people can come to you maybe in a time of crisis, projects just going offshoot, and actually your attitude is not maybe the most approachable, or it's that kind of thing, it's that icing on the cake that really does make an analyst stand out as being, that person's brilliant at what they're doing because actually they've got my back. Again, that's another thing that project managers often say: I want my PMO to have my back. And what does that mean? What kind of behaviors would a PMO analyst be displaying that shows they are that kind of person? And these are just some of the things that, again, from a behavioral point of view, these are the kind of things that you would see from people, that you are a great person to be around in a team, but you are somebody that is helpful, that you will go out of your way to help people. But actually we see you doing what you're preaching to people. So, we talk about often, and this is what really gets people's backs up about the PMO sometimes. You're telling people, this is the ecosystem we created. These are the ways that we want you to do X, Y, and Z. But the PMO is not doing the same thing. You're not taking your own medicine. That's the thing where, again, it's just practicing what you're preaching, and that you're exemplar, and that, you're doing what you want in other people to do, that kind of stuff. So again, a long list there. But again, this session is available afterwards in the members library, so you can pore over it. But as I said, it comes from the competency framework, so you can have a dip into that and read at your leisure. So the additional one I just wanted to talk about is that kind of somebody's personality. And this is just from me, right? This is my observation. This is not in the book. This is not something that I've readily shared or anything. This is just my, what I've felt about good PMO analysts that I've met along the way. So they are approachable, they're highly organized, they're really patient, they're adaptable, they are conscientious, and they have a great sense of humor, because, hey, you need one, don't you, really, working in this space, because it's an interesting space to be in. Projects change, all of that kind of stuff. You're probably working with some right characters, and sometimes humor is the only way to get you all through. I think good PMO analysts are people that are rational and logical. I also think that they're also engaging and personable people as well. It is very much left and right brain stuff. We do have that kind of analytical side to what we're doing, but we are very much in terms of being in the middle of people and relationships and things like that. So I think we do really use both sides. I think a good PMO analyst is somebody who is really curious, somebody that can see, certainly if you're working across projects, or if you're working at a program level or a portfolio level, and you keep seeing the same behaviors and keep seeing the same cock-ups, and you think, why is that? What's going on here? Like, why do we keep saying the same kind of things coming through on status reports and stuff? It's that bit. It's that bit where you're just curious about projects that are, something doesn't feel right, doesn't smell right. And that's where you start to really go into being a great PMO analyst. It's all your instincts and your hairs on the back of your neck stand up when you can, when you see something's not quite right. And that wanting to do the right thing as well, because ultimately, I think we hear all the time about the failure rates around projects and stuff, and about they're always really high. But I think we're all in this game to try and better that. and that we do want our projects and programs and things to go well. And, ultimately you're part of that whole ecosystem change in your organization, and you're wanting to do the right thing, and that means that sometimes, yes, you might feel like you have to perhaps go and do something that might be slightly out of your remit, or I'm just going to go and have this conversation with this person over here about X. It's not totally what we're doing over in the PMO, but I'm intrigued to know what's going on in their world, or, it's that kind of thing. And then finally, you are a person that joins the dots, and you are a networker. So again, this is about seeing the PMO not as a department, not as seen as that we sit here in this bit, that I see it more that you have the tentacles, that you're going out and seeing people and talking to people and putting people together and seeing the connections, because that's where PMOs should be. We should be able to see the project managers are down here in their projects. As a PMOs, we should be able to see that there are things going on over here and over here that need sorting out. It's that kind of thing. So again, for me, it's something where, yes, there's a rational and logical part to the job, which can sometimes mean that we're at a desk with head down in tools and spreadsheets and things like that. But we have to recognize that we need to be the kind of networker, the engaging person, the relationship builder as well. So that's the first part in terms of the roles and responsibilities. So a lot of information does come at you. I'm just going to tone it down a little bit here now, because it's about the tasks at hand. And I could just go blatting through, these are the kind of things that everybody does, and it's just a long list on the screen, pretty boring. So what I wanted to do is just do something slightly different, and then let's just think about, okay, so the tasks at hand, we have got a lot of different things going on. And, if we look at it from a kind of planning of time and what it is we're doing, so there you go, you've got a weekly planner, top level. This is a PMO analyst thinking about the week ahead. These are the kind of things that I absolutely want to get sorted out. These are my top things I want to do. And if you're wondering what B, L, and D stands for, it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I'd like to think that our PMO analysts in the world get the priorities right and thinking about where the next meal's coming from, because I certainly do. So let's have a look at from this point of view in terms of weekly. You have to have exceptional time management skills. It is one of the things that, certainly when I was hiring PMO people, is that kind of organizational side to somebody. I think it's pretty innate in that, it's something you're not born with, but it's something that you have to be a good organizer, because that is what you're going to be doing a lot of, and not just managing your own time. But this second one is that you'll be coordinating other people's as well. Somebody has to be in charge. Somebody has to have pretty good skills around this area. It should really be the PMO. What this other thing is also telling me in terms of weekly planning is that they should be planning around your development as well. We sometimes think about how we're planning out our week. It's all very work related. We need to do reports for this person, a meeting for that. Actually, we should be planning in the development bit. And even if that is only half an hour of reading another chapter in a book that you've been picking up, maybe it's only half an hour of doing some internal kind of bite-sized learning. You've probably got some kind of organizational learning systems you can use, or jumping onto LinkedIn Learning or something like that. It's about being able to plan in our time, because it's not all about the work. We've also got to make the space. I think this is the other problem, and certainly since post-pandemic, meeting after meeting after meeting, where is the space to be able to actually do reactions that are coming out of the meeting? But more importantly, for that PMO, where's the dot joining time? Where do we get to think and reflect and, all of that kind of stuff? And I think, again, it's about being able to think about, we need some space in our daily and weekly planning in order to be able to do that part of our job. We love talking about this one at work, at House of PMO here, in that we always have some serotonin tasks. It's nice to try and do a few of them, like across the week. I don't know if anybody else calls them serotonin tasks, but these are the ones that are they're really mind-numbingly dull. But it's the fairly quick to do, but it just means you've got that sense of you've ticked something off. So, for example, here it would be like, we need to sort out the file system, and it'll only probably take about half an hour. And it's just like, we've got loads of really important things to do, but sometimes you just really need to just do one of those boring jobs. But just kind of, serotonin is all about making you feel happier, feeling a bit more in control of something. And sometimes that is about one of those tasks. Think about it when you're thinking about your entire week. Sometimes we moan about the admin tasks, but actually some of our admin tasks make us feel really pleased because they're quick to tick off and a sense of that you've actually achieved something in that day. And we also think about our Friday afternoon head dump. So when I'm doing a weekly planner, for example, I'm sure a lot of you are the same, is about the planning for the following week. You should probably start doing it on the Friday afternoon before you walk out the door for the weekend. Again, it's just something when we're thinking about the tasks at hand, we look at that for what we've got on this today, on the, the next week and the next month, making sure that we're ready for that week ahead. So from a daily planner point of view, then, is getting into the detail. And I think what's really interesting with the PMO work is that switch that we have between technical tasks and the people and relationship type tasks. So here with this daily planner for this particular person, they're doing some stuff around, top priorities for this particular day. They've got to do a utilization report for somebody. But at the same time, they've also got to schedule their own performance review with their manager. Or they've got to get in touch with one of the other project teams about rescheduling something, or there's a bit of a problem in terms of, what's happening with this particular project. I need to get over and see Mike over there and just find out what's going on. It's that bit. And the interesting bit is that it's often interrupt driven. And we have that balancing priorities and dealing with the conflicts in terms of deadlines and all of that kind of good stuff. This might seem like, why is she talking about this? It's just rocket science. But we've just talked about a whole list of different competencies, knowledge, skills, behaviours, all the jobs that we're doing on a day-by-day basis. Actually, these are where some of those skills come in. So how well do you deal with interrupt? How resilient are you at being able to deal with that kind of conflict of people pulling you in left, right, and centre? It's all of those kind of things that I think people don't recognise, that to be robust in this role is a recognition that these are the kind of expectations, that you're going to have in this role. So if I'm talking to people today that are fairly new to it or thinking about getting into it, it is a very, very busy job, very busy, and I think, again, are you the right kind of person, that you feel that you can deal with that kind of stuff. So again, here it's just a House of PMO is sometimes bringing just maybe a little different perspective or something you perhaps not really thought about much at all. The role of the PMO analyst will also change versus whether you're a specialist or you're more of an all-rounder. So again, do we often talk about that? Because again, if in a bigger PMO, you may find that you are the reporting guru, and that is what you're doing the vast majority of your time, versus somebody that actually, I do a bit of everything. And again, that changes the way that we plan our day, and then what we're going to be doing and who we're going to be interacting with, and how all that gets managed. So again, just thinking, you may be an all-rounder today, but actually you're starting to slowly find a bit of a specialism. Again, is that where you want to go? Because how will that make your day look? Are you happy to be doing that kind of specialist role day in, day out? It's something to think about in terms of you as an individual. And again, we've also got to think about our work in terms of, we've got the project versus the operational. And what I mean by that, I should have called it P3M really, but P3M work versus operational, because we're never 100% utilised on projects and programmes. We've always got to be doing some stuff that is to do with our organisation. And whether that's just listening to a breakfast briefing from one of the senior execs, or things like doing a performance review, or, there's always going to be some work that you're not planning out that I'm going to be 100% utilised working on P3M type activity. You're going to have to schedule the time to get in some of the organisational stuff that needs to be done. And again, your role will change as a PMO analyst, whether you're a PMO analyst and just doing the role as PMO analyst, or you've got the additional responsibility of maybe being a senior PMO analyst where you've got some kind of supervisory part to your role. It could be looking after some recent grads, interns, or some of your PMO administrators. Don't have the title as PMO manager. It's very much a supervisory team lead role you're doing, because that, again, you need to schedule in your time across your day and your week and your month to make sure that you're doing all the things that you need to be doing there to make sure you're a good supervisor and a good lead. So finally, we look at the kind of the schedule over a period of and this is just a week. But we know we have cycles, and our cycles there in terms of reporting. This is just over a week. This probably looks really empty for some of you guys, because I know just how what some of you I've looked at some of your diaries actually. It's been really interesting how much they're packed. But you can see there with some of the darker writing that that is around the reporting stuff. But this is just across a week. So we've got schedules and reporting cycles on a daily basis, a weekly basis, and that monthly basis. So again, we're scheduling it out, and does everybody see that in terms of the PMO, or is it just you and your particular cycles? Again, it's just thinking about the tasks in hand. We've got the balance across the kind of projects and programs that you're managing, because again, you might not necessarily have that luxury of working on one project, one program. So not only have you got reporting cycle across one project, it could be many, and so on. We've also got the daily, weekly, and monthly planned meetings. So these are the things that you know are coming up. So these are the ones that are in red on the daily schedule there. And these are things that could be project related. They could be also things that are more kind of organizational related. So there's a PPM forum there at 12 noon on Wednesday. So lunch is out there. But again, scheduling across the entire week around the planned meetings. And then, of course, you've also got people dropping stuff in. You've also got, from a PMO analyst point of view, the kind of training programs and workshop type activity, whether you're actually as running them or if you're participating in them. And then you've also got the PMO improvement activities to be able to also get in there. This is one of the most important areas of PMO, but also one of the ones that's not done the most, is what are we doing to ensure our PMO is still fit for purpose? We do not have continuous improvement embedded in what we're doing in PMO. And that is just for a wake-up call for a lot of people to say, actually, even if we're only doing an hour a week or an hour every 2 weeks, have we got some kind of cycle in place of activity that makes sure that we're actually focusing on this? So again, tasks in hand. I didn't want to go into the boring stuff because, gosh, you'll feel like you're at work, you know. So, but again, for me, it is about just that whole weekly, we're daily, weekly, or monthly. That is our cadence, you know, that kind of drumbeat that we kind of work to as an analyst. So finally, for the last 15-20 minutes, hopefully I'm still delivering what that you're looking, you know, that you came along for today. If there's any questions that have popped up in your head about the first 2 bits, please do drop them into chat and I can get them at the end. I know what I tend to do is just bombard you with a load of stuff, but hopefully it's things that are going to make you think and you making a few notes at least. So from the career path point of view, then, from PMO analysts, here's some, I suppose, insights just generally about the PMO and how it affects careers and things like that. We recognise that PMOs have very different contexts. In other words, you're working within different organisations. Sometimes you're working within different departments within those organisations. For example, you might be very IT focused, or you might be finance focused, or HR, whatever it might be. So you're working in a different kind of context in which you're PMO. So that has a bearing. That has a bearing on perhaps how you think about your job today, and where you might want to go in the future, and whether it's opening doors or closing doors. All of those kind of things will swirling around your head. PMOs have a breadth and depth of services. So again, we talked right at the beginning about the whole service-based approach now with PMOs. And again, the PMO you're working within may only be doing skimming across the top. So offering quite a wide variety of different services, but you're just doing a minimal kind of insights, or, you know, that kind of thing. So it's quite a narrow across a lot of different services. Or your PMO might be quite specialised in what it's offering, so actually it goes quite deep. Again, these are kind of things that have a bearing as you think about your career and your career path, and, you know, potentially, am I happy with where I am now? Am I, you know, thinking about where perhaps might want to be in the future? These, again, kind of things that will have a bearing on the doors that may be open, or some doors which might have to be forced a little bit more. There is no fixed career path for PMO, and that's the beauty of it. There is a really nice stable one, which I'm going to show you in a second, but there is no fixed career path. And I'm going to show you a few different slides that are going to show you just how linear it is not. But of course, PMOs, we know, differs in every organization. Because that context is different, it does mean that today you are seeing a slice of PMO world. Yeah, you're seeing your organizational's view of PMO. But there are hundreds and thousands of organizations out there that are doing PMO, and they each have their own different slice of PMO world and do things slightly different, which means that whatever you're doing today, sometimes people can feel like there's a bit of a ceiling because actually, our organization doesn't seem to be that serious about PMO, or actually we keep hitting our head against the big wall because people, just don't want to see the PMO do some of the stuff it is capable of doing. So there's different things that kind of impact you as a professional because of where you are right now in terms of your organization. So those are 4 facts really about PMO and how they're going to impact your career path. So from a PMO point of view, then the nicest, cleanest path you can possibly get is this, which is PMO admin analyst to manager to director. Lovely, if that's where you want to be going. But I think the realities are very, very different in terms of how some people take a deviation from that path. Some people take a deviation for years from that path and come back. Some people come onto that path halfway up it. So there's just different ways in which that career path can look. So what I want to do is just talk first of all about, I've been doing this presentation last night on a different screen, you can tell because of my last letters. But I want to tell you about just these first 2 levels, first of all, because these are the ones that have PMO analyst bearing, right? So from a career path point of view, this is the reasons why people look to change, do something different. These are the main reasons why, as to if you're coming out of the administrator role into the analyst, these are the 3 main reasons why people want to get out of that level into the next, which is, again, makes sense from an administrator point of view. Look at the analysts. The reason why people make the changes because they do want to become more specialized. They want to work in a different type of PMO, or actually they think, they're ready to take that next step up to that management level. So those are the main reasons why, again, this comes from 20 years of working with people. So it's anecdotal, there's no research. It's just purely based on my experiences working with people and why they want to move onwards. I'll show you the PMO manager one and the director one just for completeness, because I know we're talking about the analyst level, but I just think, it's worth it just to make it nice and tidy slide. So we're obviously talking about that analyst one, but look at the manager. Again, it is about them wanting to perhaps change into a different type of PMO. So maybe moving from, being a program level PMO manager into portfolio. Bigger PMOs, more complex, or they want to get more involved in actually starting up PMOs rather than running them. And then you can see with a PMO director, it is about being able to work more strategically, being able to operate at that higher level in terms of EPMOs. And maybe it's because you want to be, recognised for, you've been a number of years in this space and you want to be recognised for it. But it's a PMO analyst that we're talking about right now. These are the things that make people want to move on. And just to align what House of PMO is doing in terms of the accreditation around this space, because the competency framework gives you that kind of, these are the roles and responsibilities of analysts, this you can do self-assessment. There has to be a training course that allows people to be able to get the essentials. In other words, the competencies that need to be in place, the kind of things you need to know in order to be able to walk into that job and do it. Yeah, so the qualifications from the House of PMO are practical ones. Yeah, these are about being able to, okay, so if I'm going to be looking at reporting and insights as a PMO analyst, what should I be doing? Yeah, so it's at that level. The PMO analyst one, out of all of these 4, is the longest training course. And that gives you an insight into just how much and how big that role is in terms of what it is you need to know and understand about the actual day-to-day operations. So everything that I've just shown you before in terms of the competencies, knowledge, skills, and behaviours, these are the things that go into trying to tell you how to be able to do that job. So these courses are called the essentials because they are about what you'll need, the essentials you need to be able to do the jobs. Now, if you're listening to this as a PMO analyst that's, been working around this space for like 5-6 years, these are not the courses for you. These are for people that have been maybe coming into it or been working in the field for about 2-3 years and just need something more. Maybe it's because actually you've not had as much opportunity within your organization as you thought you would at this point in your career. These are the kind of things that you would do, that kind of qualification. So these are all about at the beginning of your career. Now you can go and have a look at the website. There's a thing there, qualifications. It tells you all about the difference between the four. And then you can also download the brochure. There's also the synopsis and everything of what's involved in those training courses. So you can go and have a look at that. So career paths, means development. Yeah, so we move on. But there you go. There's the stuff but from House of PMO. We've talked before then about the career path in terms of where we're going, in that, it can also mean that you want to change from project program to portfolio, or I want to do a lot more around portfolio and center of excellence, all of it, so it's a different context, gives us different opportunity in where we might go with our paths and our career paths. So for example, we've got the core, what we do. Yeah, so it's the bog standard, I'm doing the role around PMO analysis. I might choose to have a specialism. So I'm still doing most of my core role and I want to specialize as well, or I go all out and out specialism. So just an insight, I think over the next couple of years, if you were to think about specializing around project data and analytics, you may find that there's probably going to be an explosion in that specialism and probably an explosion in the job market to go with it. But, again, these are the things that you can think about. You can also think about management. So again, PMO management, moving on to that kind of next level, or if you're not managing the PMO, having that kind of management responsibility, as a PMO analyst, I talked about, are you just, working as an analyst, or you can take on that kind of supervisory role, so that kind of middle step between, that and becoming a PMO manager. There's also leadership type stuff, which is very different to the management side. So again, if you're not familiar already with the Inside PMO report we did on PMO leadership, you should have a look at that, because not only does it talk about what we mean by being a PMO leadership in terms of being a leader, it actually has insights for people at PMO analyst level, because everybody within the PMO has some kind of leadership quality. Yeah. And what we mean by that is that even if you are an analyst and you are representing, you're at the project board, you will be displaying some leadership characteristics, the fact that you are sitting in that room doing your job. And that could be that you're influencing people. It could be that you're delivering some insights and getting people to take action. All of those kind of things do fall into that kind of leadership category. So it's a really interesting read, a different perspective. Excuse me. So you've also talked about the competency framework, but this should give you some help in terms of thinking about where my development might be coming from next, and therefore, is it going to help me on the path where I think I want to be going? Or if I don't know where I want to be going right now, should I be thinking about addressing some of the gaps in my knowledge and my competencies? Yes, that competency framework gives you some ideas on where you might be able to focus, so you're not starting from a blank piece of paper. This picture always makes people go, what on earth's that? That is kind of just trying to put down everything that we're doing around PMO. And there's a lot of different things, I could just list that out, but it'd be really boring. But I thought, well, from a career point of view and career paths, there's a lot of paths there. These are some of the different areas in which we get involved, and therefore this will give you some ideas alongside the things that you're doing, looking at your skills gap, using the assessment and things like that. So there are different pockets. So is it leadership and management? There's some portfolio management stuff, maybe program management if you're working at projects. Is it PMO management? We've got different pockets for us to look at. Change management might be a route. Business analysis might be the path that you might choose to go on. There's a lot of different things. So again, have a squint and have a look at what's on there. It looks really interesting when you start to put it down like that. There's a lot of stuff that we get involved in. Traditionally, and again, this is a House of PMO slide we've shared quite a lot, but traditionally we talked about that, going up from admin up to director. These are kind of functional kind of paths going forward. You start around the administration support level. You do support around project and program support. That role starts to switch into more of a guidance role. So actually, you're not just doing that kind of collation of reports. You are doing a lot more of that kind of service development, but you are looking at things like putting systems in place, that you may be doing that kind of reporting and insight stuff. So again, at project and program level, then you can switch into maybe portfolio level type activity. And again, that's working with things like resource management, capacity planning, that kind of thing, like portfolio prioritization, different tools, different frameworks, different techniques you would be using at portfolio level than you would at project and program. And then finally at that guidance level. So you are getting more involved there at that kind of more senior end, which was where decisions are being taken around that prioritization, helping with, helping the organizations to balance their kind of investment and what they're doing. Again, bringing your wealth of experience into things like really making benefits management fly at that level. So again, we think about career paths, not just necessarily in terms of making a change in title and a that kind of thing. It is a career path in terms of thinking about our switch of focus around what we're doing in PMO. I said it's not particularly linear, and this kind of sums it up for me in terms of where you could go. We've got some steps there in terms of, if you're from a project coordinator. So if you do the top right, you could go into project management. You could go down that route. So actually leave PMO behind. We see that a lot. And we see a lot of people going into project management, but then come back into PMO management later on. So you don't rule out and never return into PMO again. But it is a route that it does, a lot of people favor it because they'd really like to see what it is like delivering. It makes them a better PMO in the future if you recognise and understand what people are doing. So you can go down that PMO manager route into director and enterprise level. There is split off roles there, like head of project management, portfolio manager, slightly different. You go down the program management route and all of that kind of stuff. You could actually go down the project team route. We see this quite a bit, that people really enjoy working with a particular project team. They get to know some of the people that are working on the team. And if you actually really like your job sounds really great. Tends to be things like business analysts, data analyst, perhaps going into change analyst, change manager, that kind of thing. Again, people, sometimes if you are a PMO analyst that is specializing around finance, you might find that the finance route is something that you want to pursue and do that more formally. And then you've got people that are, just interested in doing other business focused roles. PMO is a good grounding for a lot of other roles that are happening operationally within the business, or going down that route of being more of a consultant, or doing something completely different, maybe running your own business still within P3M in some way, or a completely different career, running a small business. Again, a number of people have made a complete lifestyle change. Think about your skill sets, and you could be running a small business if you wanted to, because you've got really great grounding into it. So there's a lot of different kind of paths which are not necessarily immediately apparent. But again, I think, from my experiences, being in PMOs, understanding, organizations, how they're changing, working in projects and programs should be giving you a level of confidence in your own abilities that, these kind of things in the future, you shouldn't be ruling out, that you're ready to take the next steps up. So that is today's session. I've never spoken about PMO analysts so much in one go, but they're a wonderful bunch. What I think keep the PMO going. They are the workhorse. They do a lot of different things and can do a lot of different things, and most of the time can turn their hands to different things if needed. So that's it for today. Thanks for joining us. And if there are any other questions around PMO Analysts that you think we've not covered off, please do get in touch. And if you're not already a member, please do consider it. It's not hugely expensive, certainly for an online version, which means not only do you get to come to all of the kind of online events that we do, that you'll have access to all the materials, the recordings, the slide decks, all of that kind of stuff, plus money off some of the things like the conference and things. So if you've been thinking about it for a while, hopefully this gives you a little nudge. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.